I can also add one additional incident in which the Army Air Corps medical team took care of me. It just so happens that 75 years ago this month, I had an event in which I had to bail out of a damaged P-40.
Thank you for doing that, Dad.
And luckily, I was able, after the collision in the air, I was able to gain enough altitude that it was safe to climb over the side of the P-40 after I had slid the canopy back. In exiting from the plane, I hit the tail of the plane and injured my right leg rather severely. But fortunately, the parachute opened up in time. That I don't remember the flight down, but it wasn't more than a couple of seconds before I was in the trees in Okefenokee Swamp in northern Florida. Well, luckily the parachute snagged in the trees and left me hanging about 10 feet from the ground. So I was able, with the knife I carried, to cut the cords of the parachute and drop to the ground. And
you knew your leg was broken, right?
It wasn't. What was broken? It was very badly
strained.
Scraped. Yeah, that was the word.
Huh?
So I could look down and I could see about 6 or 8 inches of bone between my knee and my right ankle. But I was safe on the earth. After a little while, some rescue planes flew over and were able to spot my location by referencing it to the burning refuge of the plane that hit me and my plane. It took about 8 hours for the rescue party to come, make that 6 hours for the rescue party to make its way through the swamp and find me. And they loaded me onto a stretcher and then carried me probably a mile through the swamp to a forest road, and then a motor vehicle to Tallahassee, Florida, where I was in an Army hospital. They were very kind to me. They treated me very well. They managed to take care of my injured leg, and it was not necessarily a happy stay in the hospital, but a very kindly and well serviced.
So how long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital about a week or so. And then incidentally, when they finally felt I was well enough to return to the base at the air base at Tallahassee, Florida. So again, they loaded me into an ambulance and took me to the base. I checked back into my quarters, and the very next morning, I was on the flight line ready to fly.
Yes.
And I think the reason was that the general rule of the Army was that after an accident like that, you didn't want to fly anymore.
Right. So what was it like getting in the plane next time after the crash?
So it was just a little over 2 weeks after they rescued me from the swamp that I was back on the flight line, sitting in the cockpit and revving up the engine.
Yeah.
When I was given the signal to take off, I gunned the engine, and of course the airplanes with a propeller-driven engine have a tendency to turn to the left. That's called torque.
Right, right.
And to avoid torque and keep the plane headed level down the runway, you had to apply a right rudder.
Okay.
And although my wound had not been sufficiently healed, it was still an advantage, and I had to apply a tremendous amount of pressure into my leg, and
you knew that didn't feel great.
not only did it not feel great, it was the part of the whole incident that hurt the most.
Were you worried about crashing again?
Where was the crash?
Were you worried about crashing again?
Not worried about crashing again, but that was the thing they wanted me to get over, the fact that fear of flying.
Sure, yeah.
Fear of this occurring again. And so I completed that flight, and landed, and then continued with my program, yeah.